Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Fit Father podcast. I'm your host, Spencer Gallo, and today we have with us not one, but two of my amazing clients here at Gallo Fitness. Please welcome me in joining in Ari, who's a volunteer firefighter, a father of four, and claims to not only own any shirts with sleeves, he's lost 10 pounds in the last 7 weeks with me. And also, please give a warm welcome to Adam, who has been through every program out there. He's a father of one who's probably going to become a baseball all-star, and he's lost over 19 pounds in the last 11 weeks working together. Both of these guys are crushing their journeys. And the reason that we have them on the podcast today is because the two of them came into a recent 14-day challenge and tied. So I figured I would drag them on here to the podcast to make them settle it live on air, even though we're probably not watching or listening to this live. So without further ado, Ari, Adam, thanks for coming on, boys. Welcome to the Fit Father podcast.
Yeah, Spencer, man, thank you so much for the great introduction. And Ari, it's great to finally meet you. We've gone back and forth and really talked over social media, but never actually talked to each other, just sending videos. So it's exciting to be here and get to know a little more and figure out what the challenge is to figure out who's going to win this whole thing.
Yeah, no, I'll mirror those sentiments. Adam, great to meet you. Spencer, thanks for having us. It's been a wild ride, not just the past 14 days, but I'd say ever since I've started working with Spencer, and excited to see where it goes. So far thrilled where it is, but it's always a journey. So excited to see where it goes. And yeah, Adam, you've been a fierce competitor from day one of this 14-day challenge. And I too am excited to see not just where it's going to end up, but how we are actually going to determine who is the winner.
Yeah, so to be fair to all the listeners, these guys have no idea. I put up a poll on my Instagram asking how people settle ties in events. And one of the gentlemen on the phone right now said, whoever has the shortest last or the longest first name. And I responded back and said, for somebody with 3 letters in their first name, that's a bold assumption.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong. It was... It definitely probably wasn't the smartest suggestion I've ever made, but sometimes that works. I don't know, longer names. Even Adam probably thought that with longer names he might not be in trouble, but he does beat me by 1.
Yeah,
I think I was like, hey, yeah, deal, let's do it. Longer names, I win.
Yeah, I literally think Adam sent me a message back. He goes, I won. All right, man. Let's jump in then, guys. So I'm gonna start out. I'm gonna let age go before beauty here. So Ari, kind of tell me or tell everybody, kind of, when you were growing up, like what did that look like? What was your lifestyle like? Where did you come from? Kind of, what kind of family did you have? What was your growing up experience? And then also, kind of tie into that a little bit of, were you into sports, fitness? Like, did all that come in later in life? Like, kind of, how did all of that blend together growing up?
Yeah, cool. So I grew up in Queens, New York. I am a middle child. I've got an older brother and a younger sister. And again, if you guys haven't been able to figure out I'm a middle child yet, I'm sure by the end of this podcast you will. So again, middle child. My brother and I grew up. We're super close. He's only 18 months or so older than me. Like, it's only 1 grade. My sister is about 4 years younger than me. We're also close, but again, just similar interests. My brother and I in sports and things like that, and TV shows, music, things like that. So he and I, growing up, were a little bit closer. Kind of hung out with the same group of friends. As far as fitness goes, I was always into sports, playing and watching, but more specifically playing. So for me, I was never a guy who was going to the gym all the time. I got my fitness through, running on the football field, hockey, baseball, whatever it was. So there was never really an intentional focus to work out, right? It was always through sports or through, something either organized or even pickup. In high school, it was organized sports. In college, there was some organized sports, like I ran track in freshman year, but again, nothing really, Division III college, nothing crazy. But I never really focused on, gym, exercise, regimen, things like that. It was, for me, I was fortunate, blame it on genes or whatever you want to call it. I was always relatively in shape. I know that that's like in quotes, but as far as the scale, how I looked, things like that, it never really was a focus for me. I would say the only training I actually did is in 2012. Me and a couple friends decided we wanted to run a marathon, and we ended up doing a bunch of those. So starting out training for marathons, obviously there was a regimented training, but after a while, felt like we didn't really need to train anymore, and we just kind of run here and there, and running kind of fell off. And then eventually, I got to my 30s, and families and things like that, and extracurricular activities, and firefighting, uh, and again, it felt like there wasn't a real focus in my life on my physical well-being. I was focused on a lot of other things, but far as my own self, my focusing on how I looked, how I felt, hopefully, my health, my age, things like that. I never really focused on it. And then, there came a point in time where I was like, hey, like, you can take care of everything else, but you can't take care of yourself. And that's kind of where Spence and I started chatting.
Awesome. I love that. Adam, how about you, man? How was like kind of growing up for you? And, same question, was fitness and sports kind of always in your DNA, or did that kind of come later on in life?
Sure, yeah. So I mean, I grew up in a family that everybody's overweight, always has been, and so like, yeah, we played sports growing up. Played a little bit of everything, through Pee Wees and through Little League, growing up in a small town, and but as far as like actual fitness and things like that, no, it wasn't really ever anything in our household that was taken care of, and the nutrition part was not either. But played, up into high school, played football. I played baseball my first couple years, and I wrestled. Also, Ari, give yourself some credit, man. D3 still college, like that's phenomenal. Don't take that away from yourself.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that.
Yeah,
Quite frankly, I had joined the team because they got to, as a freshman. Obviously, I was last to register, but I found out if you were on a team, because you have to work it around scheduling of like
right.
practices and weight room things like that. You got to actually register for classes first, so that's the only reason I signed up for the team. I guess lucky enough I made it, but it really didn't last.
Yeah. Still though, good for you, man. That's
Appreciate
huge.
that. Thanks.
I was never on that track. Hopefully, like Spencer said in the intro, my son is. Hopefully, he can get some money to pay for college at least. But um, speaking of my son, I got a girl pregnant when I was 17 and had a kid when I was 18, and so that will change your life. And so then I was working 8 to 5 every day and going to college classes 3 nights a week, from like 5:30 to 9:30. Um, and then even more, fitness and nutrition was not anywhere on the scale of things I was looking at. Right, you just eat whenever you can, wherever you can. Um, didn't really ever work out because I didn't have time. After high school, quit doing anything for a while. Right, didn't even do any intramurals. I didn't go to like a typical college. I did a lot of online stuff, and then at a community college. Um, and I knew I was getting big and bigger and bigger. And then moved to the city that I live in now, and got hooked up with some people who had gotten into an MLM, right, a multi-level marketing shake company, and weighed myself, and I was at 400 pounds. Didn't realize it. I had already been coaching a couple years. I'd coached football. I had coached wrestling. I was playing basketball once a week with some guys from the school I worked at 400 pounds or more. So 400 is the most that I know I ever was. Took a journey there, finally got kind of serious about it. Went through with the shake program, got into working out more, things like that over a couple year period. Lost a ton of weight and got down realistically probably to 225 or 230. Cut to 215 to win a bet. But when I say cut, like there was no water left in me. I have a picture. My eyes are sunken and dark, and it's pretty bad. And then like that company, we kind of quit doing that, and then things went back the other direction again. Gained a bunch of weight back, um, over a period of years, but got back up as high as I know as 321. And then COVID hit, and it was easy to finally take time again because nothing was happening to start walking, start running. Just there was nothing else to do. So started losing weight there again. Got down to 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago, 2 years ago. I don't know. Anyway, I was at about 215 again for real. Um, and then life happened, and things didn't go the way I wanted them to. And again, the nutrition and fitness got put on the back burner, and got up again to 300 pounds. and then did 75 hard and lost about 30 pounds and then gained about 20 of that back. And then I met Spencer. So that's a long journey of up and down and kind of all over the place. But one of the biggest things for me is I want to be a good role model for my son, and make sure that he knows how to, what nutrition is, what exercise is. He's very involved in sports, so he gets that side of it. But it's a lifelong journey, not just while you're in competitive organized sports, right? And so making sure that I'm one around for him as a single dad, and then two, that he has that role model and knows what it's all about and understands some of that. So it's kind of a real quick synopsis of my my journey, but it's been up and down and up and down. And then I've lost just about 20 pounds with Spencer over 11 and a half weeks or 11 weeks, something like that. So it's great, and I know we'll get more in depth into how that all works too. But it's been phenomenal, and get to meet cool people like Ari and have a competition with somebody I've never even met.
Adam, it's funny. You had mentioned something towards the end of that I thought was really interesting, and you had said that you wanted to kind of learn like how to eat, what to eat, things like that. Like for me, that was probably the biggest barrier to entry. Like as a firefighter, we've got a gym in our firehouse, and prior to chatting with Spencer, like I'd not stepped foot in it. You know what I mean? Like I didn't even know what to do. You know what I mean? So like whether it was like I knew not to eat like donuts, but like I didn't know that I needed to focus on how much protein I was taking, or how many calories. I in my head I was like, well, if I'm eating quote unquote healthy foods, then like it doesn't matter. Like I'll be okay. So like from a nutrition perspective, I had zero clue, and then from an exercise perspective, like again, I'd seen a gym, I'd been like, you know what I mean? I'd seen guys in there. I could get under a bench press and do a couple of reps, but I didn't know how much weight. I didn't know how many reps. Even like now, the concept of resting between sets, I had no, like I literally no idea. And for me, I think that was the biggest barrier to entry. Like I just didn't know what to do, and I needed someone to show me.
So on the donut piece, if neither of you knew, Friday was National Donut Day. So for anybody listening, this episode is being recorded on June 5th. So Friday was National Donut Day. I believe it was June 2nd. I showed up to my corporate office with a box of donuts and sent a company-wide email that said, hey, everybody, happy National Donut Day from your favorite fitness coach, and just blasted it out to my entire office.
Love it.
How many people came by for donuts?
No, I put them in the kitchen, so I don't even know. But all of a sudden, like, it was like I sent it out, and the next thing you know, I heard a couple of the guys like in my like area being like, "Oh, are there still donuts back there? Are there still donuts back there?" And like our director of marketing like sent me a message, was like, "Hey, thanks so much."
That's funny.
That's funny.
RE nutrition was by far my biggest thing, and when I started working with Spencer, that was one of the first things I said. Like the workout piece of it, I know more about what to do now. I'm not a programmer, right? I don't have that piece of it, but it was the nutrition. That's always been my biggest. I know how to crash diet. I know how to cut weight. I know how to use supplements, right? And do shakes and things like that. But as far as the long term, the longevity of it is where I've struggled, right? That's why I've been up and down and up and down. So figuring out that piece of it for me was definitely the biggest issue.
Yeah, I mean, shit, Adam, I think when you came in, you were eating like 1,500 calories or something like that. Like you were eating some ridiculously low amount of calories. And I remember I gave you your calorie target, and you like sent me a message. You were like, are you sure?
Yeah. I think I was like, hey man, I trust that you know what you're doing, but also like, this just seems super odd because I think it was at 2,800 or something. It's like it was double what I had been eating.
Yeah.
And I was like, I think what I said, and I'd have to go back and look, but I think I was like, man, I trust you. I know you know what you're doing, but like I'm kind of skeptical because you always hear about calorie deficit, right? That's the big thing. It's always calorie deficit, cut calories, cut calories, cut calories. And then I meet up with Spencer and I pay him some money and he's like, eat more food. And I'm like, are you sure? Is that
you're
really
like, I love what you're saying. I love what you're saying, right? But are we sure we're saying the same thing? Like, right? A plus B will equal
us to where we want to be.
Yeah, I said I wanted to lose weight, dude.
Yeah.
So, kind of peeling the fitness piece with it, but kind of breaking it apart a little bit. In terms of like your teenage years, like obviously, Adam, you said, shit, you had a kid at 18, like that obviously changes your life. But like, prior to that, I mean, I guess for both of you, like when you were teenagers in school, like were you the kid that was like constantly bullied and just like pushed around, or were you like the Letterman jacket jock running around, like running the high school campuses?
I mean, I definitely played sports. I had the letter jacket, things like that. But I learned quickly when I was younger that if you make fun of yourself, it makes things easier, quote unquote, right? Um, so there was definitely that piece of it. Like I was always the fat kid. I had the nicknames that went along with that. I ran in lots of different groups, I guess, and so I had uh, lots of different experiences in that. But yeah, absolutely. I mean, with being overweight your whole life, and kids can be ruthless, right? I learned, for lack of a better term, like if I get out ahead of it and I make fun of myself, it takes away some of that power on their side. But definitely did that, right? Now that I'm separated from it, and the fact that I worked in a school for a long time and see the other side of it, it's like, man, yeah, I was absolutely like that is a pretty traumatic experience for a young person to go through. Um, but then I also did play sports and had a letter jacket, so I guess I don't know where I fall on that continuum with what you're asking, um, but yeah, definitely. I've always been fat, right? I've always been big, so definitely have gotten that my whole life.
Yeah. So, but all right, before you answer, so Adam, I think you bring up a good point. Is like I don't know that I was ever totally bullied per se. I feel like looking back at high school, I definitely could see that there were people that bullied me, but that I also bullied them. But I too, like I was a heavier kid in high school. Like I was not this little beanpole until like junior, senior year. Like my freshman year, I was the fat little kid running around doing nothing, getting into trouble. And certainly that kind of trauma piece to it that you brought up is, I think, a real thing. I mean, it happens to so many people. Um, how have you found kind of since all that happened, and obviously, the timing of everything, like subsequently having that like being made fun of and that traumatic experience of being bullied, and then immediately being like, oh shit, now I'm a father too. Like, how did you kind of navigate both the trauma piece of being bullied, and then translating that through to today, and like how you've kind of become who you are today with that kind of whole situation? Or is that still something that, like, in the back of your head is always this like trauma response, just like on a ticking time bomb for you?
Sure, sure. I mean, that's a great question. I think it's some of both. Like, I definitely still am my harshest critic, and not in a good way. Um, some of the thoughts that run through my head would definitely not be fun for other people to hear at times, right? Just with, man, you're a fat piece of shit, and man, you're all this stuff. Um, I think I just didn't address it for a long time, right? I mean, I kind of went through it all, but then had a kid, was working full time, going to school, all that kind of stuff, and so I think it just kind of got pushed to the back burner. But I've never liked myself. I've never liked how I look. Um, I think I was able to take some of my own experiences when I was working in a school and working with kids to be able to help some other people, whether it's with the weight or with different things of working through, whether it's bullying or being made fun of or self confidence issues or whatever. I'm a lot better at helping other people than helping myself, and so I think I have been able to take that and I guess, for lack of a better word, like pay it forward. But that's who I am. Like, I love helping people. Are those thoughts still there, and is it still? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I look at myself in the mirror every day, right? And even it is great to look at pictures. And Spencer, I know you and I have talked about this, right? The pictures since I started with you are great. But I'll get pictures that'll pop up from where I was a couple years ago when I was down at 215, 220. And I'm like, man, what did I do? Like, I was there, I had it. But then I also have pictures of when I was at 400 pounds. And so I just need to look at those also. I'm like, hey, but you're also less, you've lost a ton of weight since then. Like, you've lost over 100 pounds since then. And so that's huge. And just that piece of keeping it all in perspective, I guess. I don't know if I even answered your question. I kind of went a different direction there, but that's kind of where
No,
my
yeah,
brain
totally.
went as we're moving forward there.
No, yeah, absolutely. And I was gonna kind of tap into that with perspective is, um, when we first started, you were just under 300. Um, and literally yesterday you checked into me and you were like, so had to buy new clothes for my new job and bought extra large. And this is the first time I've bought an extra large in a long time. And I'm like, that's massive. Like that to me is like that massive perspective shift of being like, yeah, like I used to be, there was a point in time where I was 220 and I looked this way, but then I've also been buying, double XL plus shirts for however many years and months that now I'm buying extra larges and like feel confident in them.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, that's huge, and that's one of those, right, when we do our check-ins, the non-scale victories for sure is the clothes, and that's a tangible one that you can really see. Even looking at pictures and stuff, it's hard to see that difference sometimes. But when you change sizes, things like that definitely is something that um, is a lot easier to notice that and be like, yeah, that's a good difference right there. That's something that actually it's working, right? I'm making progress.
It's something tangible to actually like see, touch, and feel versus like the scale is the scale, but being able to physically order
Mm-hmm.
a shirt that's smaller and know that you're going to fit into it, like something to actually tangibly feel and touch that you're actually noticing the difference is definitely huge.
100%.
So Ari, back to you after a little bit of a workaround with Adam. Kind of, how about you for teenage years? Were you the bullied kid because you were scrawny, or were you the Letterman jock who thought he ran the school?
Yeah, and it's funny that Adam, while you were talking, I wrote down a bunch of different notes because there was a bunch of things that you had said that I kind of wanted to touch upon, but again, I also want to answer Spencer's question. And yes, I am. Oh, I'm 39, but I'm a little old school at heart. Like I still use pen and paper. Like I'm not a typer. So anyway, so wrote some notes, but to go to your question as far as how did high school grow up, um, uh, I similar to Adam. I was in a lot of circles. So like I played football, I played baseball, I played hockey. I was also on the debate team, the math team, and college bowl. Now, I was football as a starter, baseball as a starter, hockey played third line, so not necessarily starter, but plenty of playing time. The other teams, math team, I was a backup. Debate team, I did something that was like a solo monologue, so I didn't need to be smart. I just had to like talking, which worked well for me. So I ran, I guess, long way of saying I ran in a bunch of different circles. Had I run in one of those circles, I easily could have been the bully or the bullied. But I think because I ran in so many circles and I was relatively friendly with just about my entire grade, it made it a lot easier for me to quote unquote fit in, right? Like in high school, no one fits in, but at the same time, kind of everyone fits in, right? We're all in that awkward stage. So again, growing up, there was never really. I'm sure people, if you would ask them, "Hey, was Ari was he a bully in high school?" Probably. Some
We
people.
can swear in this podcast,
Yeah,
Ari.
I don't know if I could or not. Some people probably would have been like, "Yeah, Ari's a dick," but for the most part, I tried to be as close or friendly with as many people as I could. But I did like to joke around. I was a class clown. I was in trouble a lot, like kicked out of classes and things like that. So I'm sure that somewhere along the way, I probably was more of a bully than someone who got bullied. However, like and we're talking about weight. I don't know how tall either of you guys are. I'm about 5'7", 5'8", 5'8" on a good day, 5'7" if I'm slouching, I guess. But in high school, I was probably a little shorter, maybe 5'3", 5'4". I was maybe 120 pounds soaking wet, like tiny, like just thin. Um, and I could eat whatever I wanted. So, like, remember how I said no donuts before? I could easily polish off half dozen donuts, or like an Entenmann's cake or whatever it was, and like then have two more slices of pizza, then have like a 2 liter bottle of soda, and wake up the next morning and I lost a pound. You know what I mean? Like it just
Hey, hey,
metabolism. Yeah,
Ari,
yeah.
you're the kind of guy that I hated in high school.
Yeah, no, see, I
Because
get that.
I
And
also ate
that's
whatever I wanted, but it went the other direction.
right. Well, yeah. So, like my eating habits, I enjoyed eating healthy food. Like, for example, like I like salad. I happen to like vegetables, but like there was no focus for it for me because again, my weight was what it was. It like almost wasn't going anywhere. Um, but that kind of brought me to some of the stuff, Adam, that you had said that I wanted to address. Like even now, like before I started, and again, height wise, let's call it 5'8". Even before I started with Spencer, I was 155, I think, when we started. Like, generally speaking, that's not a big person, right? You wouldn't necessarily say, oh, that guy needs to lose weight. But like, if I'm being fully transparent and 100% honest, like, there were clothes that I owned that I didn't like the way they looked on me. So whether you're 400 pounds or whether you're 155 pounds, like, there's always going to be something in that inner monologue that is going to, kind of, hopefully you're your own hardest critic, right? Like, you should be trying to make yourself better, because quite frankly, I don't know that anyone else will, but it's not something that only tall people deal with, only short people deal with, only fat people, like, it, everyone has whatever demon they're working with. And if it's not weight, it could be, they don't get great sleep, or they don't like their job. Like, there's so many different things. So I guess the message I'm trying to get to is that, like, even, in quotes, skinny people, like, we still have stuff that we struggle with, and nothing comes easy, right? Like, before I started with Spencer, like, the idea of limiting myself to not eat more than a certain amount, like a portion, that was foreign to me. I'd never done it. And that's just, again, luckily I had genetics, I guess, on my side, but like, that was something I never thought I could do, and now here I am doing it, and relatively enjoying the results. So again, like, everyone has their own struggles, and so, and again, even at 155, weight was something that, and I never thought. In high school, I never would have thought I would say, hey, I needed to go on a diet, or I needed, maybe a diet's the wrong word, but I needed to focus on my nutrition. I never would have thought that in high school or even in college, right? Again, like, small guy, things fit relatively. I'm still wearing, smalls, but again, like you said, in those weekly check-ins, the non-scale victories. I was telling Spencer last week, and I think this week again also, there's a couple shirts that were out of rotation, and now they're back into rotation. Like, again, someone who's, even if I just lost 10 pounds, like, there's still a difference there. And I think that's like the focus. You're looking at the wins, the gains, things like that. The one thing I will tell you, Adam, and this is something that I tell my wife, and my wife is gorgeous. She's had two kids, so she's also on a fitness journey, if you will. She's beautiful. She doesn't need to be on it, but in her head she does. She once, like, told me her inner monologue. I was like, "What is this inner monologue that you're talking about?" Because I'm pretty positive about myself, and it's hard for me to imagine that other people are as critical. Like, again, like, I'll be honest with myself, but I won't be like, hey, Ari, you need to lose 100 pounds. Like, no, I'll be honest. Like, hey, Ari, that shirt doesn't look great on you today. Go wear a different shirt. So, like, the idea of, like, a really, really critical, harsh, almost bullying inner monologue was foreign to me. And she told me, she's like, hey, here's one of the days, she was like, hey, here's what I thought. And when I told her, I was like, that, like, if anyone else in the world said that to you, I'd have to punch them in the face. So, like, why are you allowed to say that to yourself if no one else can? It's the same thing. Like, there's a fine line between harsh criticism and constructive criticism, and I think that some approach that I've taken recently, ever since I've started working on myself, and dealing with Spencer, and things like that, like, I just think it's like, you have to make sure that there's that constructive side, because we could all be dicks to ourselves. We could all be dicks to other people also, right? Like, but at the end of the day, it doesn't get you anywhere. It just gets you upset. So, yeah. So don't let inner monologue Adam talk to you like that, because maybe I'll have to come over and kick his ass.
There you go. Yeah, I mean, it's funny, right? And funny is maybe not the right word, but 100%. Like, everybody thinks it, but like you said, hey, Ari, you don't look that great in that shirt. But for me to be like, man, you look like a fat piece of shit, right? Just being honest, like, that's the way that it is. Or like, god damn, you look horrible in that shirt. Not like, oh, that doesn't look great, but like, holy shit, that looks horrible, And so that's the piece of it that is. I've worked on that for a long time, and will continue to work on that for a long time. Even when I was down at 215 pounds, like, it's amazing. There were still parts of me that I was like, oh yeah, I can't get rid of the spare tire right around the bottom of my belly. And that's what I focused on. I had just lost half my body weight,
Right.
and I was focused on that I had a spare tire around my midsection. Um, so that's a mindset shift that is constant and takes a lot of work. And Spencer, you might go more into this too, but Ari, you said go on a diet, and that's one of the hard things, right? Is like, it is your diet, and diet has become a bad word, or has become like, your diet is your, and I don't know if it matters if I say like brand names, right? But like your Atkins or your keto or your whatever is your diet, or your crash diet, and it's like, well, your diet is just what you eat, period, end of story. Now, yes, there are labeled diets based off of different things. But I wish, right, and Spencer, maybe I'm taking some of your gusto too. Like, I wish that would go away, because it's not in all of my journeys. Like, your diet is not does not have to be a specific set of things. Like, it doesn't have to be that. Your diet is literally what you consume, and so that being a bad word needs to change. Now it won't, at least not for a long time, because public opinion and all that stuff. But that was just one of the things you said that got my mind rolling again too, with all of it.
I feel like I just had one of those Obi-Wan Kenobi moments where like my Padawan has finally learned. Because I feel like I've had this exact conversation with Adam of like, dude, a diet is literally like, Google the word diet. The definition is basically like the food that you eat to sustain life. That's a diet. Like, I've had this conversation, I think, with Adam.
That's funny.
I guess so. Not to bring things down, but just kind of curious, like, what, have you guys run into or had like massive setbacks kind of in your lives to getting where you are today, both personally, professionally, whatever, like fitness aside, like if you want to talk fitness, great, but like just in general, like setbacks and kind of like how how you struggle through life a lot of times affects kind of what that turns into on the fitness side. So I'm just kind of curious, like, have you guys had like any of those massive setbacks where like you realistically have to like evaluate your life again?
Ari, go ahead. I think I went first on the last one.
Sure. I'm going to preface this with a notion that I had and I currently have a pretty privileged and great life, right? Like, just the classic obstacles that some people need to, like, for example. So let me take a step back. I'm divorced and remarried. I've got 2 kids with my first wife and 2 kids with my second wife. Right off the bat, my 2 oldest kids growing up in a divorced household, that puts them behind someone who, again, just you take 2 random kids, 1 kid from a divorced household, 1 kid from a married household. Statistically speaking, the kid with whose parents are both there is going to have an easier time, school, whatever it is, right? Just overall adjusting. So from my perspective, I grew up, my parents, like, my mom didn't work, my dad worked. Like, when I came home from school, we had family dinner together. Uh, I'd call us middle class, right? Like, I never was questioning where my next meal came from, never questioning, like, could I afford this outfit I wanted to buy? I did drive my parents' old car in high school, so I drove a Caravan, but like, again, like, I still had a car, granted it was a 7-seater, but again, I had a car in high school. So again, I've grown up a relatively privileged life, and that continues to this day. So for me to kind of talk about challenges feels, I don't want it to feel disingenuous. That's all. That being said, even within what I would call a pretty great life, there's definitely things that I've struggled with. Um, a couple of things. So, getting along with my ex, because we've got kids together, like, that is something that I'm, from the time we got divorced, probably for the first couple of years, even if I was outwardly saying, focus on the kids, focus on the kids, focus on the kids, make sure they're happy, like, don't worry about the ex-wife, I couldn't help it. Like, there was just these things in my head that either she would do that would infuriate me, or, I'll take blame things that I did that infuriate her, like, whatever it was. Uh, that was definitely a struggle for me, and a lot of the times got in the way of whatever I was doing, right? So whether it got in the way of work, got in the way of relationships, things like that. So definitely struggled with some familiar stuff. That being said, my ex and I are in a great place right now, and luckily, she lives one town over, where we do a lot of things together, with all the kids together. She's remarried, got kids, and our families are somewhat intertwined. We took a family trip to Israel a couple of years back, which went fabulous. So again, things have obviously gotten a lot better, but relationship wise with her was tough. I was also, and I don't know if this is like how I grew up or whatever it was, um, but I was always I'll handle it, keep everything inside kind of guy. Like, not talking about feelings, not express, like, everything was, all right, how you doing? I'm great. Like, never let anyone else, I'll deal with it on my own. Just push it straight down. You know what I mean? Just like push, 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 push. And never really admitting to anyone, whether it was a significant other, a parent, a sibling, like never admitting to anyone that there was anything wrong. Just everything is just rainbows and daisies, and that's something that I've took some time to really change. My wife, I'll take a step back. My wife's name is Ariel, and but she, even before I met her, she's always gone by Ari. Like when we met, it was Ari, so on and so forth. It's never confusing for us, but it's always confusing for other people. When I say the name Ari, it's never me. So just be clear. This Ari is the one who helped me get through my issues of like taking everything on my own. I'm talking about her. So she's the one. Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, that's exactly right. It's like Ari, shut up. No, no, wait, what? Yeah. But anyway, so she's the one who first like helped me talk about things. Since then I see a therapist who helps me, deal with the mental stuff, and quite frankly, like that's one aspect of me kind of taking care of myself. The nutrition and the fitness is the other piece. But so yeah, so me with my own dealing with issues, problems, things like that was something I had to overcome. And then I guess the last piece, which some people, depending on how they want to look at it, I was diagnosed with ADHD at a very, very young age. Um, I've been evaluated, if you will, by my teachers and assessed for my behavior. I can remember as early as third grade. It might have been even earlier than that, but since early on in my age, I treated a certain way um, because of how I was acting. Because whether they wanted to call it ants in the pants, they finally figured out it was ADHD or whatever it is. Like I was always in school struggled with focus and things like that, and that's something that I still struggle with today. But that's another aspect of kind of an area of my life that isn't 100% perfect, but it's something that I think I like who I am because of it. But some people may find it a lot. That's kind of Spencer. Is that kind of the direction you were going, or did I completely miss the question and just go take us off on a completely different tangent?
No, absolutely. And I think that obviously, like you touched on a lot. You know, I don't know how well you guys know this. I think probably listeners probably know this, but like I personally am like heavily involved with Movember, which is obviously Movember started out just kind of fundraising for prostate and testicular cancer, like research, treatment, etc. But over the I've been doing fundraising with them now for 11 years, and the last probably 5 or 6, they really took a turn and said that, yes, prostate and testicular cancer is still like the bulk of what we do, but they have put such a massive, massive effort on ending like men's suicide and suicide prevention and men's mental health as a whole. And so therefore that has also subsequently translated into me in my life. Like I've worked with a life coach. I mean, shit, I did therapy when I was super young. My parents got divorced when I was 8, and they put me in like group therapy, which sure. Like it was what it was. I have no idea what we talked about. I stopped going. But like recently, like late last year, early this year, I was working with a life coach, the wonderful Leslie Cravar, who I will always shout out on every opportunity I can. And that kind of turned my entire like mindset and life around how I handle situations, how I handle, myself, how I present myself, all those types of things. So if you're willing, and feel free to tell me to go pound sand, but like if you're willing to kind of talk, like, you brought up, like you started talking with your wife and then subsequently now and currently still go through therapy. Like if you're willing and open, like just kind of talk through like what that's done for you. Not necessarily like, I don't need you to tell like privileged information on your mindset and everything, but like just kind of like what that experience was like for you and how that's kind of shaped the Ari that's on the podcast today.
Yeah, no, no. There is no open book here. There's no secrets. We can, nothing's off limits. So yeah, more than happy to jump into it. And I think it's whoever's listening, it's important. Like, um, growing up, I'm sure like through the ADHD diagnosis, I'd seen a therapist or two, but never seen a therapist on a regular basis. And in my head, even into my 20s, I had always known people who either were in therapy or saw someone or saw a therapist or things like that. But it always, and again, this is obviously a misconception on my part, but it always felt like it was because they were broken and they needed to fix something. There was this idea that, like, well, like, I'm not going to go see an orthopedist if none of my muscles or none of my joints are bothering me, right? Like, so why would I go talk to a therapist if I'm fine? Um, so first of all, obviously I wasn't fine. Or, no one is fine. We're all changing, we're all growing, and different situations, scenarios, like different bumps along the way will impact everyone differently. So it's hard for me now to think back and be like, was I fine? Like there was no way I was fine. But anyway, so I had this stigma in my mind just about therapy. Like I wasn't big into talking about my feelings with anyone, even like people I was close with, never mind someone who's a relative stranger, right? Because day one, first session, that person's a stranger, right? They may have some like great credentials on the wall, but they're a stranger. So I was like, if I don't talk to my girlfriend, fiance, wife, ex-wife, parents, sibling, like if I don't talk to my closest inner circle of guy friends, if I don't talk to anyone about these things that are bothering me, whether it's my confidence or whether it's my weight or whether it's my relationship with my parents, my sibling, like whatever it is, like if these are things that I'm not sharing with my closest inner circle, then who the hell is this person who doesn't even know me? How are they going to help? You know what I mean? Like it almost was like I was positive that this person couldn't help me. Um, and so I stayed away from it. I was like, look, I'm fine. I'm good. I'm not crazy. I'm not depressed. I'm happy. So I don't need to fix anything. But it's kind of a similar analogy to my physical well-being, right? Like I was like, look, I'm not overweight. I don't need to go on a diet like you said, Adam, or I don't need someone to help me with nutrition or exercise. Like I'm fine. Like, you know what I mean? I'm wearing a small, right? Like my shirt's a small, so I'm good. Um, and it took a while for me to see someone, uh, and there wasn't necessarily an impetus. My wife has seen a therapist for quite some time, even in her younger years, and it's interesting. She said to me, she's like, "Look, like this person's not trying to solve anything. This person is just trying to help you with whatever puzzle you're working on. Potentially, just put some of those pieces a little bit better in order for you so that you don't have to do that. Like there's so many balls that you already have in the air. Why don't you let someone else try and keep one of them up for you? Or you know what I mean? And like it sounded so simple when she said it, and I felt almost silly that it hadn't come across my. She was like, look, like you go for your annual physical every year, right? You don't have to go to a specialist, but you go to your annual physical, right? You get that checked out. So why wouldn't you go to get your physical for your brain, your emotions, everything? Why wouldn't you just go get that checked out? And obviously, it's more frequent than annually, but it's the same idea, right? Like, you know, you take sometimes you take your car in for like a 55,000 mile checkup or whatever it is, not necessarily because there's anything wrong, but because sometimes you take it in or whatever it is. So that's how she put it, and I was like, look, like she wasn't wrong. Um, and so I started talking to someone, so specifically someone who focused with ADHD, because again, even at 39, is something that is on my mind or something that I deal with on a relative regular daily basis. And I've had great success. And um, let's see, I was already married to Ari when I started talking to this person, probably about 2+ years ago. So we were already married, things were good, but she said things have gotten better. Like everything seems to have gotten better. My relationship with my family, whether it's whether it's my wife, my kids, or my siblings and my parents, I think that's gotten better. I've become a lot more open. I think I've become a lot more approachable, both at work and the firehouse, like just with my friends. Like I think I've definitely had a huge perspective change, and I don't know when that happened, but just my overall perspective on life. Like, Adam, that inner monologue idea, like I probably never would have thought of that 5 years ago, or the idea that I need to work on myself instead of helping other people, like that, I never would have thought about before I started, chatting with my therapist. So, I guess very, very long way of saying that, I highly recommend that everyone talks to somebody. It doesn't need to be a paid professional. It could be, if your spouse is that person for you, that's great if you feel good about it. Some people like just objective stuff, objective perspective, and some things, maybe you don't want to bounce the first idea off your significant other or your best friend or your brother or whatever it is. And sometimes it's nice to have that just completely objective, non-judgmental person. The one thing I will say though is that, at least for me, fit is really important, and the first person may not be the right person. So if you do think that you want to talk to someone and after a session or two it doesn't feel like it's right, don't give up on therapy itself, but maybe give up on that therapist. That's what I got.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that. I really appreciate that. And 1,000% agree with you. I think that everybody should talk to somebody, but it doesn't have to be, you know, a paid professional. And I will, I will speak for myself and let you guys speak for yourselves. But if you need somebody to talk to, my DMs are always open. You can always reach out to me and I will talk to you or let you talk to me as much or as little as you need to. If you are in a position that you need that, like I am always here and I will always open that DM and answer you.
Love that. Ari, powerful stuff, man. That's huge. That is, I was that person for a lot of people. So I was a teacher for many years, for 12 years. I think I worked in the schools. Um, and man, could I tell you some stories of what kids will share with a trusted individual, right? That they won't share with anybody else, won't share with mom and dad. Um, Sometimes silly little stuff, sometimes totally heartbreaking stuff. Um, but like that's huge. And having somebody, and I'm very similar, right? I'm a fix it guy. I don't care about myself. I'll figure out how to deal with myself, right? I'll figure that out later. Um, yeah, just you had some great stuff there. Also, you you started talking about the kids from divorced households and things like that. So this isn't to tout me or anything, but like I got a special ed master's degree and then I got a second master's degree that was called trauma and resilience in educational settings, and it was all about dealing with that kind of stuff. So the trauma of divorce and the ACE scores, the adverse childhood experiences, and helping kids, not only helping like figure out what those are and identify those, but then how to work through them, how to support through that. And then it was all based around the educational system, since that's what I was working in. Excuse me. But yeah, I mean, you're speaking my language there, man. I love that stuff, and it's so important. And I definitely took care of other people a lot more than I've taken care of myself for many years. Um, but that's phenomenal. I love it. Spencer, what was the question? I don't remember what the question was.
Yeah, we spent a lot of time talking with Ari, but it was a really great conversation. I didn't want to derail
Oh,
anything.
awesome. No, let it
The
go.
Yeah, the original question to come back to you is, have you faced any kind of like major setbacks in getting to who Adam is today, and kind of both personally, professionally, and kind of how's that
Yeah,
essentially like shaped it? Like, how did you handle getting into those and out of those situations?
got it. Got it. Yep, now I remember. Funny part is a lot of it revolves around mental health too, right? As you figure things out. And so, um, yeah, like my parents got divorced when I was 16. Um, which at the time I didn't care. I was like, I'm fine. I've got a girlfriend. Like I'm living my life. I couldn't care less, right? You get a few miles down the road and you look back and like obviously that impacts you. Um, then we moved around a lot after that. We lived with my mom. We moved around a lot after that. Um, Mom, if you listen to this, sorry, but I'm pretty sure that some of that moving around was we were being told we were no longer allowed to live in the houses we lived in. Um, I didn't realize that until some years later, but I think that might have been part of it, right? So we moved a lot, all within the same town, so it's not like we had new people, but that's still an experience of doing things, right? We were, I would say, lower middle class, so like the food options we had weren't necessarily great food options, but there was always a lot of it, and so that was part of it too, right? That lots and lots of food, and there's things that I didn't realize until truly well, I'll talk more, but COVID made me stop, and my mind kept going. Like I couldn't just keep going and working and focusing on other things because the world shut down, right? And some of those things that I didn't realize were there really started to pop up. And I actually sat down and had a conversation with my mom a little while after that, just to like say, hey, here's things that I have been thinking about a lot that I need you to know. I blame my parents, and unfortunately and unfairly, probably it mostly goes towards my mom. I think because that's who I ended up living with, But I blame them for being overweight. I blamed them for not knowing how to handle money properly. I blamed them for lots of things like that, right? That I didn't realize that was there, but I was holding on to those resentments. And then when the world stopped and forced me to confront some of that stuff, it just started popping up and popping up and popping up. Um, Ended up going into therapy for a little while because of that and some other things at that point too, of just like, man, there's a lot there that I have not necessarily purposely pushed down, but I think maybe subconsciously, right? You don't want to address that stuff. And so it gets pushed to the back of the mind and you try not to think about it. Couple other things, right? I mean, my parents got divorced at 16, got a girl pregnant when I was 17, had a kid when I was 18. All of a sudden, I'm an adult, right? And I have a little one that I have to care for. Um, and so, yeah, that definitely derailed my life and changed things drastically. Um, then, when my son was about 2.5, there was a long time and actually, not that you guys would know this, Spencer, you might. I have tattoos on the back of my calves that say "Live Life." So there were people that would ask, like, "Hey, how's it going? What's up? How whatever." And I'd say, "Oh, I'm just living life." And there was a long time there where subconsciously that meant I'm just getting by, like I'm surviving, I'm making it through. And then I don't know why I don't have like a one thing I can point to, but I was like, man, I don't like this. I don't like this feeling. So then it changed to like, yeah, I'm living life. I'm thriving. I'm enjoying it. I had decided I needed to get back to that, which then ultimately led me to the decision to also leave my son's mother when he was about 2.5 years old, which made, I think, in my mental health was better, but also made things harder because now you're a single parent and like there's some different things there, right? Um, so moved away from her, and then when we split time for a while, we were never married, never did anything official through the courts or anything. But when it was time for him to go to school, I was like, no, he's going to school with me. Like he's going to go to school up here. I work in the schools. I know the schools. They're phenomenal. And he's going to be with me. Like he's going to be, he's my son. That's the way it is. She didn't really fight me on that, which is fine because she'd have lost anyway. But when it just became harder, right? Because I was responsible for more. Um, Eventually, just a couple years ago, like there's lots of things that got to it, but just a year or two ago, she actually moved out of state. Isn't even around. Doesn't help with anything. Doesn't pay for anything. Hardly talks to him. There's one story that I can tell. I was talking to her a few months back about money, hoping she'd finally actually help with some stuff. And McKinnon, my son, was sitting on the couch next to me. I was like, hey, quietly, I was like, hey, buddy, you want to talk to your mom? He's like, nah, I'm good. Hadn't probably talked to her for a week. And I was like, nah, I'm good. And so that kind of stuff, that wears heavy on me too for him. Um, and so that kind of like there's been things that have happened in his life with his mom that derail my life because he is my life, right? Like that's what it is. Um, then like professionally, I worked at a middle school that I loved. Thought I'd be there forever. Had some stuff go down, so I left and went to the high school, which I loved. And then after not this past school year, but the one before, like education's a tough business to work in anymore. There's a lot of stuff that goes into it, a lot of politics, a lot of other stuff that makes it difficult. And it's not about the kids. So made the difficult decision to leave and go into a whole different world and go into insurance, which is fine. Um, but like that derailed things and that made it tough. And um, so I mean, yeah, there's definitely been things along the way that have really changed the course of my life, I guess, in many different ways, including just this past week, I started a new full time job that is getting me back to working with kids and back into the athletic environment. And back, I got re energized and got my passion back and things like that. And so, in a positive way, like that shift has been huge for me. Um, so, again, kind of a real quick, I guess, synopsis of things, but please ask questions or wherever. I'm an open book too, Ari. Like I'll answer anything you want. I don't care. I have no secrets.
I think the only question that I have is obviously, you said, you've kind of, your weight has been, for lack of a better term, a yo-yo for quite a long time. How did kind of, I mean, dude, you've been through the freaking ringer with a lot of shit. Like how, and maybe I'm just like trying to put something where it's not, but I'm curious, like, did you find that like any of those kind of major changes were also coinciding with like massive weight gain or massive weight loss? Like, were any of those things kind of correlated to, like, oh, I told my whatever, my son's mom that like he's coming to school with me, and then that decision, all of a sudden you gained a shit ton of weight because now you had the extra stresses, or something like that. Like, did any of those kind of events have impacts on kind of your overall health and fitness, and that, the weight bounces?
For sure. I mean, the easy answer is yes. I'm sure I could look at a timeline and go through some of it. Um, when I left my son's mom, I was already giant, but I had gained probably 100 pounds since I graduated high school, probably because I had a kid and I was working full time and going to school and not focusing on anything. Um, so back then, like that piece of it was when I left her. I mean, I didn't gain any weight, but I was already a giant, right? I was already huge. Also, just going back because this is the way my brain works. Ari, I'm 5'7", but my license says I'm 5'8". Just in case you were wondering how tall I am. But then,
Adam, I
oh,
think I'm 5'8", but my license says I'm 5'7", so we're in a.
there you go. It evens out. um, so I didn't gain a bunch there. When I said he was coming to school up here, I mean I was still huge. Um, then lost weight, right? And then, man, I'd have to look back, but I'm sure there was probably something that kind of led to that. Just like, nah, I'm good. F it. Who cares? I'm just going to start eating again. But then more recent, like COVID and all those thoughts and stuff, I went down the train of like I was in the gym probably 6 hours a day because there was nothing else to do. Like I was still working at the school coming back in August. COVID was March of 2020, so August of 2020, we could be in the school, but the kids couldn't. It was all over Zoom. So I did most of my stuff. I was on the bike, I was on the treadmill, I was on the elliptical. I did some weightlifting, but it was more just like crazy cardio and not a lot of calories, which is also probably why I spiked back up quickly after that stopped, right? Um, but then, yeah, with like changing jobs, like that was super stressful. Definitely gained weight there. Then lost it with COVID. Then the shit hit the fan again, or if we weren't allowed to cuss, I like to say the stinky stuff hit the whirly thing, and then I gained weight again. Right, like I left the job at the school, and I definitely gained weight. Part of that was I went from moving around a lot to sitting at a desk 8 hours a day, but part of it too was again just like food is my comfort. Always has been, and it's funny because as I'm eating, I know I shouldn't be, and I know that I'm not eating the right things, and I'm like eating it and saying don't do that, but I still do it anyway. Um, so the easy answer and long answer is yes, 100%. There's some correlation between those life events and gaining or losing weight um, on either end of it.
By the way, just to be clear, like I think that had my genetics not been what they were in terms of my metabolism, I'm sure that would have happened to me as well. I know for a fact, like after I got divorced, my let's call it my social life, if you will, was an absolute shit show, right? Like I was going out every night, I was meeting people, I was drinking a ton, like you know what I mean, like very easily, eating bar food, like again, like the and again, because of genetics, it happened to, I lucked out and it didn't impact me, but I very easily could have ended up in, scale wise, at least in the same place, that Adam, you are, you know what I mean? Like it easily, between all the crap I was eating and drinking, I very easily could have been in a much different weight class, if you will, than where I am either today or, like whatever it is. So that's just luck of the draw. Like I think people typically react to things the same way, and they reach for those comforts the same, so whether you were reaching for chips and I was reaching for beer, or I was reaching for whatever, like I'm just like we were both doing the same thing, and it just happens to be the stars aligned and it didn't impact me the same way it did you, but we were we were looking to heal the same way, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. And I know this is going way back, but like when I interjected early on and said you were the kind of guy I hated in high school, that was also a joke because I know that like it doesn't matter. Like, yes, you're on the opposite end of it as me, right? As far as body weight and things like that go. But and maybe this is because I've done a lot of my own work and I've helped other people and I've worked on that. But like that doesn't matter, right? It doesn't matter that I'm on the heavy end and you're on the skinny end. Like that doesn't make you like you should love yourself because you're on the skinny end. Like that's not the way that works. And I know that. Unfortunately, sometimes that's the way that it goes, especially with heavy people. Like fuck you, Ari. Who are you telling me I should lose weight? You're skinny, right? Who are you trying to compete with me on this? You're skinny. But that's not the way it is. Like that doesn't matter. That's a BS way out of it and a way for me to come up with an excuse for me to say, screw you. Now, if you were to turn around and say, oh yeah, I know what it's like to be 400 pounds, I would call your bullshit. I'd say now you're full of shit, right? However, do you have struggles? 100%. Do you have mindset struggles, body issues, some of that stuff? Yeah, absolutely you can. It doesn't matter that you're 155 pounds. That doesn't make any difference in that realm.
Yeah, no, and I think that not to not to plug Spencer a little bit, but like to bring it back to the 14-day challenge, which is really where we got here. But like the whole notion of, Adam, I don't know how old you are. I'm 39. Like, but the whole idea of getting guys together in a group who are all not necessarily in the same place financially, socially, economically, like, but we're all doing something to better ourselves, and therefore we can be each other's best cheerleader. That to me was like one of the best things about the challenge. Yeah, obviously it's nice to win, and it's nice to, some of the stuff was fun to do, right? Like there was some, the chugging was fun, and the picks were great, and but like the idea, the camaraderie that came with it, and like the idea that we were each pushing each other to be better, and quite frankly, not knowing your backstory, not knowing your current story, not knowing, I don't even know where you live. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I literally knew nothing about these guys. And not just Adam, right? Like, there were a handful of other guys who were doing the journey with us. Like, that for me was some of the most fun, right? Like, being able to interact with people, being able to celebrate with, people I don't know, but celebrate their wins because I know how hard it is to get a win. Like, that for me was like one of the best parts of that challenge. Winning it would also be great, but again, like there was a lot of great stuff, even taking like the winning out of it.
Ari, you're asking a lot of questions without actually asking questions. Adam, I don't know how tall you are. I don't know where you live. I don't know how old you are. Like, I'll tell you whatever. If you start asking for my social, we'll talk about that too. But like, you
Adam,
can
all
just
of a
ask.
sudden, you're gonna see me on that TV behind you, like walk through the door and like come in and be like, "Where is Adam sitting? I could
Yeah,
see these batting cages, but where is Adam? And I want to come meet him and give him a hug."
as long as you sign up for a membership and I sell you something, I'm in. Let's do it. I live in Colorado, by the way, and I'm 34. So
Gotcha. It's
remember
a
back
far
in the
walk for
old
me.
days, like when you had chat rooms and it was
Yeah,
ASL, age
ASL,
stratification,
yeah,
right? I feel like that's what you're asking me. You're like,
that's
hey,
exactly
Adam,
right.
ASL.
Yeah, if you ask me, I'm a 19-year-old female from Florida, so we're good to go.
Listen, I'm calling the cops. So here we go.
Yeah, that was not on my podcast,
We just
ladies and
took a
gentlemen.
turn.
This is
We took a
this
total
is not
different turn here.
sanctioned.
At least you said 19, I guess.
Well, yeah, right, of course. Yeah, please.
Yikes.
Yeah, not going there.
Spencer's going to cut that whole last like
Yeah, I was
5 minutes
gonna
of
say,
our
right, yeah,
thing out.
literally,
It's
there's like
just
there's gonna be
gone.
a big
Yeah,
blip, and then like all of a sudden, Spencer's gonna be like, "Well, welcome back, guys. Here we are. Let's
yeah,
wrap this one up."
yeah, yeah. And today's podcast, Ari
How to
got me
catch
banned from
an
iTunes.
Oh no, just kidding.
All right, guys. So we're coming in. We got about 20 minutes left. The time that I've asked you guys to give me. I don't want to take any more of it if you don't have to. I do want to. I have like one or two more questions that I do think I want to ask you guys, just because I think that they are fun questions. And Adam, you may have heard this question in a past episode. I asked it of Mr. Glenn Owen in the last episode, and his response was extremely emotional, but also like wildly eye-opening to me of how he reacted and responded to this question. And the best part was when I asked him, he goes, "Damn it." He's like, "I saw that question on the outline and I was hoping you weren't going to ask it." And so I forced him to answer it. But I'm curious, is kind of knowing everything that you guys have been through and what your lives are today, what would you say is your top 3 things that you would put onto your bucket list? And I'll let Adam go first.
Is that
Bucket list? You mean like
health?
things to do?
Yeah. Like if you like between now and the day that you die, what are the top 3 things that you want to achieve? They don't have to be fitness if you don't want them to be, but what are like the top 3 things?
Perfect. I know one right off the top of like I want to go to Ireland. I think that would be awesome. I have a lot of heritage. We're Irish. Not that I know anything about my heritage from there, but I've always wanted to go, and I think that would be phenomenal to go. Um, I mean, this might be a cheesy or whatever one, but like I just want to see my son grow up to be a good dude, and like he's already well on his way. He's 15, right? 15 and a half, and he's a good human, and that's huge. I'd love to watch him like play professional sports or something too, or go see him play in college and get it paid for, and then maybe pay for me someday. But just to be a good human, right? Like that's the biggest thing I think is like to grow up, be a good guy, have a family if that's what he wants to do, find a partner, and just like be a good, successful member of the community and of society. Um, and just be a good human. Like that's the thing I think that I just hope more than anything for him, which I think he will be. And like I said, he's well on his way. Um, number 3, I don't know. Can I have Ari share one or two and think about that for a minute?
Yeah, we'll come back to you.
Yeah,
Okay.
sure. So I'm not, and again, this probably goes back to my ADHD, but I'm not really a big planner. Like, like whenever we go on trips or anything, like my wife has to plan everything. So I'm meticulous with schedules, right? Like so if she books the flights and books all the places we're going to see, whatever it is, like I'll keep us on that schedule because she's not great with schedules. But if it's like, hey Ari, we're gonna go, let's say to Ireland for a week, I'll be like, okay. And if I'm planning it, all we'll do is sit in our hotel room. You know what I mean? Like it's just not my thing. I'm not great at planning. So when we talk about bucket lists, like things I want to do, like I don't want to say like I don't think that far in the future because I obviously do. I'll mirror one of Adam's sentiments. Like, so I've got 4 kids. I 2 of which are in high school, so like they're almost, they're getting there along the way. But I do want to see just like how that story ends up. Obviously, I don't want to see the end of that story. I definitely hope to be long gone before their end is, but not to get morbid. But I want to see like the type of people they turn out to be, who they end up with if they choose to do that, what they end up doing career wise, what they end up doing, within their own little social friend groups, where they choose to live, like what like you said, who they end up growing into. Because when I look back, I'm like I said, 39. I'm very different than I was at 35. I'm very different than I was at 30, and I'm drastically different than who I was at 21. So like just to see who they end up being through those different stages of their lives, for me is like the ultimate entertainment. So obviously that for me, and by the way, that is one of the reasons I started talking to Spencer, not because I had any risks, but like my dad's brother died young of a heart attack. My dad's dad died young of a heart attack. My dad luckily has had good health, and both my parents are still alive. But like the idea of potentially not being there for these kids did is a potential reality for me. So so being able to see who they become is for me, that'll definitely tickle me, and that's definitely on my list. Everything else, like I don't know. I'm not huge into travel. Um, I am a Detroit Lions fan, and so I would love to see them win the Super Bowl, but I've got
I'm
zero.
sorry.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. I have zero control over that. My Yankees and my Penguins, I've seen win multiple championships, so like that's not necessarily a focus of mine. I don't know. I don't really. There aren't many things that I'm like, oh, I need to do that, or I can't wait to do that. Like I'm not big into bungee jumping, skydiving. Like that's not my cup of tea. Um, I don't know. Yeah, I'm not a huge bucket list guy, and Spencer, I apologize. This probably didn't go the direction you had planned, but it's just not, it's not a big thing of mine. And again, probably because I'm not great at planning.
It's kind of funny, right before you started talking about the Lions and the Yankees and stuff, like truly for me, I would love to go to as many different sports arenas and fields and stadiums as possible. Like that's pretty fun. I went with a buddy out to LA last summer and we went and watched, he's a White Sox fan, and they were playing the Angels and we got to go watch some games in the Angels stadium. Um, that's pretty cool. I didn't care. I didn't have any, I mean, it's fun to watch Shohei Ohtani for sure and Mike Trout and some of them, right? But I didn't have any dog in the fight, but just going to different venues and seeing games and events and stuff is pretty cool. So I guess that's something I would put on my bucket list. I think if you want more specific, right? Like it'd be great to go to all the MLB stadiums or all the NFL or whatever. But I think just to see as many as I can and go experience different fandoms and things would be super cool.
That's
I
awesome.
apologize, this Spencer, if you got into it at the other podcast, but what are some things on your bucket list?
So before my last episode, my bucket list would have been more or less like what we've been talking about is, like we're going to Bali for our honeymoon in March. And like that would be something that's like, I'm never going to fucking make that trip again. Like shit's expensive. Like I'm not making that trip twice. That's
Wait,
a
you're
long
welcome?
flight. It's a lot of
Are
money.
we paying for this trip? Is that what's happening right now? Is Ari and I are paying this? We're financing this trip.
Exactly. Yeah.
This podcast
I need
has been
you. I
brought to
need
by-
you. Yeah, I need you both to re-sign for the next decade to pay for this trip.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you know what we could do? We could just get a sponsor of this week's podcast to be sleeves.com, and then I think we'll be all set.
There we go. Yeah, so like that to me, like going to Bali would be something, like going to Europe, like those types of things. I don't think that I ever put it on what I would call a bucket list, but I do agree with Adam of like whenever I travel, like being able to try to get to a stadium or an arena wherever I'm going. Like I've gone to Tampa and I've gone to Lightning games. I went to a Lightning Bruins game and almost got into a fight because I'm a Bruins fan and I wore a Bruins jersey. I also had quite a few beers.
I assume that you
hockey stadiums are dangerous to go to with the opposing, like of all the
especially in conference too. Like their conference, like the like Lightning and Bruins are like rivals. Like they hate each other.
Like going to a Philadelphia football game might be the same way, right? But I think hockey is hockey might be the number one of you got to really be.
I would say
brave
football.
The other team.
So hockey in general, I would say is probably like on average, it would probably be the more hostile environment. But the Eagles specifically, I think, is probably the most hostile environment for outside teams.
You can be an Eagles fan and not walk out of the stadium in like perfect health.
Well,
like
didn't Santa Claus get booed there at one point? Santa Claus.
They took snowballs with batteries in them and threw them at Santa Claus. Yeah, the Philly fans are pretty brutal. I say with my Eagles Lego helmet on my bookshelf. But so that said, both of you guys, I think, know Joe, who's on the roster right now, who's my boss. Him and I are actually presenting at the end of June in Denver at a national conference. And so I was like, well,
Spencer,
I'm looking around.
Hour down the road from me.
So I was looking and I was like, well, I'm like, what, like, where are we staying? What's this? Like, what's around? Cause like, I know the Rockies are out there. The Rockies in town. Sure enough, I can walk from my hotel to the stadium and the Dodgers are in town. I'm like, let's go. I'm going to go root on Mookie Betts. Let's go.
Plus, I mean, the Dodgers tickets will be a little more expensive, but also Rockies are not that good, so the tickets are very cheap.
Yeah, I think it was like $50. And I'm like, I don't even care if I sit and watch a single pitch of the game. Like, I just want to go have a hot dog and a beer and walk around the stadium. Like, there for 3 nights. Like, I may as well go and hang out at a baseball stadium one night.
Also, bring your oxygen because it's going to be tough walking around.
Yeah, I'm sure. 1,000%. Yeah, I mean, like for me, like I'm the same way. But so for anybody that hasn't listened to the last episode with Glenn, I strongly recommend you do it. But Glenn's perspective on a bucket list was truly eye-opening for me. And like he legitimately like broke down crying because of his response. Where basically I don't want to like totally paraphrase it and butcher it, but basically his idea of a bucket list was, I don't want my bucket list to be things. I want my bucket list to be what I leave behind. And I was like, oh. So it was like it was just very an interesting take on a bucket list that I thought was very cool. And so now I like to leave that question when I'm talking to people. Similar, like when you and I, both you guys, when you first came on and we were having kind of our first conversation together, I said to you, I was like, so why, like, basically why now? Like, what made you want to make this change? And I think both of you were like, that's a really good question. I'm like, yeah, because you probably didn't think about it until I just asked you that question.
Well, and I think maybe inadvertently, and you can tell me if this is too cheesy or whatever, but like my kid is what I'm leaving behind, right? And his impact on the world is a direct or indirect, um, because of me, like, and what I'm doing and how I'm, you know what I mean? And so I guess that kind of in my mind falls into that category of like what you leave behind, your impact on the world. And one of the other things, and it was funny because I was like, it doesn't really fall in, but like it's really cool to look at the impact I've had on kids and then watch them grow up. Like some of the kids that I've worked with are now like 21, 23, 25-year old adults. Like we go get a beer and I'm like, this is crazy because I'm having a beer with you and I knew you when you were 12, right? 15, whatever. Um, and I have a hard time because I don't like compliments. I don't like taking compliments. And that's not why I work with kids. That's not why I do that. But like, it's cool to see that and some of those relationships that build and some of those things that then those kids go out and accomplish in the world, um, directly or indirectly because of me. But like, I know I had an impact on their life. And I tell them too, I'm like, hey, I hope you understand I had an impact on your life, but you've had just as big of an impact on my life through that time as well. Um, and I started thinking about that when you were talking about it, and after I talked about my son, but like, yeah, that's huge, and that like that shift in perspective and like that mindset of instead of what can I go do, but like what can I do for others? Like what can I leave? That's huge.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think to that point, even I think that you had right around the NFL draft, I think that you sent me a message that like one of the kids that you worked with, whether it was the middle school or the high school, just got drafted to the Eagles.
Yeah, yeah. So a kid that we coached in middle school and in high school, he ended up being undrafted, but he signed with the Eagles. He was an undrafted free agent that signed with the Eagles right after the draft. Um, like it's super cool and crazy, right? You want to talk about emotional? Like the last game of his senior year. Won't get into the whole playoff structure, but they went 7-3 and didn't make the playoffs because the playoff structure out here was dumb. Like it was just stupid. But we knew that was our last game. Um, and he's 6'5", 6'6", and I'm 5'7" or 5'8" on my license. And like I grabbed him and gave him a big hug, and I broke down in his chest. And what I said to him, I was like, Brady, I'm so proud of you, and thank you for being a good influence on my son, because like my son had been around it all forever, right? And so that piece of it too, of like I poured into him and he poured back into me too, but then he also poured into my son, whether he purposely did or took the time out or just, I mean, when you're a little kid hanging out around high school kids or on high school football players, like that's pretty darn cool. And now, um, luckily, I guess we've got quite a few that are playing in college at different places, a couple that are in town right here, playing for for Colorado State University here in Fort Collins, right? And so we can go watch them play. Brady was just down the road at CU in Boulder, and now he's in the NFL, and hopefully he'll make the roster, right? Like that stuff's super cool to see. And so, yeah, I immediately reached out to you, Spencer, after he did because I knew that you were there in Philly, right? That you're a Philly fan, and so I was like, hey, I got to tell you that this kid is coming your way, and by kid, he's twice my
It's
size.
massive.
He's a grown man, is what he is.
Yeah. All right. So one question, and then I'll kind of open the floor a little bit if you guys have anything else, and then we can kind of wrap this up. Back to the original point of dragging you guys on this thing to begin with. So I would not be a podcast host who also owns a business if I didn't shamelessly self-promote myself. So I'm just curious. I know we've kind of had this conversation, I think a little bit between each of us individually, but for the folks listening, kind of what brought you to working with me? What brought you to working with Gallo Fitness? And just kind of like very, very quickly, like 2 to 3 sentences of like why, if you had to go back, you would do it again.
For sure. Yeah. I think I was just at that point where I was ready to make a change and actually do it for real this time. I think when I first reached out to you, my biggest thing's always been nutrition, and I needed somebody who knew a lot more about that to help me with that side of it. And so for me, again, right, we talked about it way early on. Like you came in and immediately said, "Cool, I'm gonna double your calories you're consuming in a day, and you're gonna lose weight." And I believed you, but I was skeptical. And sure enough, you doubled my calories, and I'm down almost 20 pounds in less than 3 months. Um, so that's huge, right? I mean, that for me is huge. And working with you, the nutrition, the workouts, all of it has been awesome. And then getting into the competition piece is great. Um, if I go back and do it again, why would I do it again? I think I would do it again because I was skeptical. There was maybe a piece of me that wanted to prove you wrong. Like, there's no way you're going to double my calories and I'm going to lose weight. But I was going to follow it and make it happen. And sure enough, you proved me wrong. And I proved you right, I guess, in working it together. So I would go back and do it again because it works and it's legit, and I'm excited to keep going.
Awesome. Ari, how about you?
I think it's very, very presumptuous of you to assume that I'm going to re-up and do it again. Like, I don't know what you're thinking here, man, but we haven't discussed that at all. So for you to presume that I'm going to do it again,
I'm just going to subtract 1 point, give Adam the win, and we'll
I
move on.
like it. After this
Yes.
conversation, I am more than happy to
Wait.
to
Yes. Where's
yeah,
my
there it
water
is.
bottle?
Yeah. No, look, I'll be frank, and this is somewhat similar on the same lines of what I had said about the therapist. Like, so what led me down to the journey is I had gotten laid off, and I had gotten some severance pay. I got a couple of months that were going to be taken care of, and I knew I had, like, financially I was okay. But I had a lot of more free time, and quite frankly, up until this point in my life, I had never been to the gym. I'd never really worked out, things like that, because I always made the excuse, well, I can't wake up early. I've got so many things going on. I want to get to bed at a reasonable time. I'm not going to go to bed late. I'm at the office during the day. Like, all of a sudden, like, a lot of my excuses, quote unquote, went away. So I was like, all right, like, I'm not thrilled how I look in all my shirts. I'm probably a little bit heavier than I want to be. Not that I should be, but that I want to be. Um, why not start building in some really great habits now when I don't have the excuses of work? So this way, when work does start again, I will already have these grooves that I'm just used to doing set in stone now. Because if I was going to do it, like, if I waited till I found a job that, like, be so focused on the new job, I would, and next thing I know, it's 3 years into this new job, and now all of a sudden I don't have time anymore. So I wanted to develop those habits. I had reached out to a couple of other trainers, nutritionists, coaches, and quite frankly, like, the thing that, and I tried two others and it didn't really stick. And the thing that stuck about you, Spencer, and to be frank, probably why I am going to re up, is because you listen. Like, I had other, like, so again, because of my ADHD and some medicine I take for it, the Ritalin or whatnot, my appetite is really more in the evening, not during the day. So I've been doing what is intermittent fasting since high school. And back in the day, I had nutritionists tell me that it's hurting my health, that I can't do that, I need to eat more. But it worked for me. And so I wanted to stick with really only eating at night. And the two other coaches that I had chatted with, like, I spent an hour conversation with them or initial meeting, and then they're like, okay, let's develop a plan. And next thing I know, they were like, okay, so here's your 3 meals that you're going to eat, and here's the 2 snacks you're going to have. And I was like, guys, like, you're not listening to me. Like, I want to do this. I want to work out. I want to keep doing, like, I want to stick to a plan, but, like, I only want to eat between, let's say, 6 p.m. and 10 p.m. or whatever the hours are. This is when I normally eat. That's the piece that I don't want to change. Um, and no one listened. And finally, when I chatted with Spencer, he's like, "Yeah, we can make that work." He's like, "Yeah." He's like, let's figure out a way, calorie wise, protein wise, workout wise. Like, let's figure out a way to add these new items to your routine, or create a routine, i.e., working out and focusing on my nutrition, but still within is keeping within your lifestyle and not really disrupting your normal lifestyle. And for me, that was like finally someone heard me. Like I said the same things to these other two guys, but finally someone was like, "Okay, Ari, I hear you." And then when the plan came out, it wasn't like Ari, between 9 and 12, you have to eat this, and then post workout, you need at least 300 calories of protein. Like it wasn't any of that. It was literally, "Hey, Ari, here's what you and I had discussed." Like it was almost so easy for the other guys, like to be like, all you have to do is just listen to what I'm saying and help me do what I need to do. And they wanted to do their thing, which I'm sure is fine and probably would have worked, but like that's not what I was looking for. So the just the idea of Spencer hearing me is really what for me helped me know that this was going to be successful basically from Jump Street. And again, I never would have envisioned the results that I have now. Even we're about, what are we, 7 or 8 weeks in or something like that. We
I
have
think you're starting week 8. Yeah.
yeah, so we have our 8 week checkup coming in, but I never would have even like I would have thought I lost a couple pounds, but just the way that I look at myself, the way that I look at working out, the way that I look at food is completely shifted in a very what I would consider a small amount of time. So yeah, that's really what it is, just him listening, which is basically what he's done for about half this podcast, just sitting there listening to us. Yeah, but again, it seems so obvious, yet I think a lot of the times it's missed. And for me, that's really what kind of clicked with Spencer, the fact that he just heard me.
Awesome, man. So for everybody listening, because I do have access to everything that Ari eats on a daily basis, how much money would you say you spend in a week on Yasu ice cream bars and Halo Top?
The answer is possibly just as much as I spend on everything else I eat. Like it could
Yeah.
be 50-50. Those I do crush those a lot. And what's interesting? So I'm lactose intolerant. So like ice cream was never a big thing for me. Like I never really got into ice cream. But I needed something to like end the night on a sweeter note, and I was used to eating just fruit, but like I couldn't crush that like all that much fruit because it's high in calories. I couldn't get the right protein shake down. So I was like looking for different things, and my wife introduced, I think it started with Yasa. That's where it started, because I think Halo Top was later. But because like I couldn't eat like 8 bars of like these Yaso bars are like 100 calories each, and maybe they've got like 6 or so grams of protein. So like it was good, but like I couldn't eat 4 of them. You know what I mean? Like so then I was like, oh, Halo Top, that works well. But yeah, you're right. I do. I've lost 10 pounds. I look probably the best I've ever looked, and I'm eating more ice cream than I ever have in my entire life. If that's not a freaking plug, I don't know what is.
I would safely say every single day that if I ever look at your nutrition log and I'm like, I think it was not this week, but last week, you checked in and you're like, I don't really have like a big nutrition win this week. And I responded back to you and I was like, you ate 3 Yazo bars and a pint of Halo Top every day this week, and you lost 2 pounds. If
Right.
that's not a nutrition win, I don't know what is.
No, you're dead right about that. Yeah. Yeah. Um, but yeah, honestly, it's been great. Um, it also, one other little bonus, which not necessarily why it worked, but like it's forced me to plan out meals, which makes my somewhat chaotic life so much. It used to be like come 7:30 every night, I'd like look to Ari and be like, so what are we eating? And inevitably we end up ordering something, like what I mean, like Uber Eats or whatever. And then, like, of course it's worse for you, like if you do it that way. A, it's more expensive, but B, like it's just not good for you. And now, like, the fact that I have to hit these certain macros, and I do like checking things off lists, so the fact that we have to hit these things, it's changed, like it's changed our perspective on dinners, and it's been great. Yeah. But
Awesome,
yeah,
man.
eat a lot of ice
So
cream. Yeah.
all right, so to start wrapping things up, I do just want to kind of open the floor to both of you. If there's anything that I haven't asked, or you feel like you want to just kind of get one last little thing in or share, I'm going to kind of give you guys the floor for a minute, and just if there's anything else that you want to share or speak about, literally completely open whatever you guys want to say.
I mean, I think for me, it's just like um, the sustainability of things and the lifelong journey, Spencer. I think we talk about that all the time, right? That lifelong journey of figuring out, because it's not about today, it's not about tomorrow. Um, that's the rest of your life, whatever that looks like. And so that's been the part for me that's been fun is developing things and figuring out more about how to make it successful long term. Like a setback today doesn't mean anything long term, right? Versus in the past, there's been times where a setback today means a setback tomorrow, and then it just compounds and compounds and compounds. So kind of that, I think just getting that mindset shift is huge, and that's been a fun part for me. Totally aside from all that, like I've loved this whole experience today and this conversation. Already getting to know you and hearing your story, and you said Spencer's listening to the podcast. That's what he gets for picking two guys that talk a lot to be the guys on his podcast. And if he didn't know that going into it, I guess that's his own fault. But
Yeah, should have booked 2
I
hours.
yeah, right, there you go. But no, like getting to know other people, right? And it's not just you. And my story already is a lot different than your story, right? But we're doing similar things. I'm sure that our macros and our assigned calories and stuff looks different because our bodies are different, which is part of the cool part too. Is it's not a one size fits all program. It's based off of you and your metrics, and Spencer adjusts it every week if needed, and you go from there, right? But Ari, we're the same height ish, but we're totally different body types, and we're both using the same dude in a similar program to get the results that we're looking for. Um, so I think that I guess there's a plug for it. It doesn't really matter who you are or what your body looks like, right? That you can do this, whatever your goals are, using this platform. So I think that's all I got for the moment.
I'll just end with a thank you, like both you guys, like, and like the entire, you know, if you want to call it the Gallo family or whatever it is, like just like I knew I'd be going down this journey. And again, I think that it, uh, well, 2 months ago I probably wouldn't have called it a journey, but now I realize that it is a journey, right? It's not like you said, Adam. It's not a diet. It's not it's not I'm trying to hit a goal. It's really like a lifestyle change and a lifestyle perspective, which now obviously I've got a greater appreciation for. But I knew it would be something I'd be doing, and I knew I probably wouldn't be doing it solo because I'd have Spencer along there with me, kind of coaching. But I had no idea that I'd be doing it with other great guys. And I think for me, that's just been like another added bonus. Like, Adam, it's been great getting to know you this past 90 minutes, but like, quite frankly, it was great getting to know you the past 2 weeks. Obviously, we've gotten to get to know each other, on a different level. And then, even starting, with the other chats, like, I love the idea that there's also this community, right? Because when we have wins, we can all celebrate. When we have losses, or we need a little bit of an extra motivation or a pick me up or whatever it is, we also, it's like Spencer's there obviously, and that's fabulous, and he's great at that. But like the idea that, like, sometimes you don't want to hear it from the coach. Sometimes you want to hear it from the other players. You know what I mean? And like sometimes it's nice to hear other guys being like, yeah, I went out for a couple of beers last night. I didn't hit my mark, but today I'm crushing it in the gym, or today I'm going to crush my water, or whatever it is. Like, just other people who are kind of in the foxholes with you. Not that Spencer isn't, because he's going on his own journey as well, and I know that he's working towards certain things. But just having the other people there is a piece that I didn't realize was going to happen, and it's something that I think that I'm really grateful for has happened, and appreciate it more than I thought I would have.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that to echo that is that when you guys came on, the very first thing that I said to you in the opening email that you got from me was welcome to the family. And I truly try as hard as I possibly can to make every single person that is part of this program and works with me, and you guys can attest to this, like, I want this to feel like a family. Like, you can be as engaged or disengaged as you choose to be in that community, but if you put yourself out there and you put yourself into that community, there's a couple other guys that are on the roster right now that are out there with you guys that maybe one of these days we'll do a full round table with like 5 or 6 of us. We'll have to book an 8-hour session for that, but but I mean, like, that truly is like, I do try as hard as I possibly can to make this feel like a family and as open as a community as you are willing and want to put yourself out there to do. So I appreciate both of your guys' statements, and I truly, like, you guys are absolutely killing it. 2 months, 3 months in, like, You guys have been freaking crushing it. I'm proud as shit of you, and I thank you for your time and efforts. So with that, kind of wrap up. So thank you both for a great conversation. This has been, we've had some really deep moments. We've had some really amazing conversation. For me, getting to know both of you guys better as well. Like even, 2 months, 3 months in, like I was learning a lot of things about you guys today too, and you guys getting to know each other. So I do, from the bottom of my heart, thank you guys so much for graciously sharing your lives and experiences. Now, obviously, to change the course, an hour and a half in. At the opening, we started this out to settle a tie between the two of you for coming in and tying out of the 14-day challenge. For anybody listening, 14-day challenges are not clients only. I just plugged these two guys in because they were killing it, and I wanted them to go after each other and kind of help pump up some of the other guys, which did work. We had a couple other guys that got in after you guys a little bit in the second week. So if you ever see anything about a 14-day challenge for me, these guys can attest it is absolutely worth joining. It is completely free. You can join it at no cost to you. You will get 2 weeks basically as a test trial of me and my coaching and the experience of working with me. And who knows, you might see Adam and Ari in there chasing after some free coaching in there again too. But in order to change that, I've been going back and forth on this since we ended the challenge. And I was debating what we would do. And so I think I came to the most logical explanation. And the notepad that I have here that I've been taking notes on, similar to Ari, with a pen and a piece of paper, I wrote down a number at the beginning of the podcast. And whoever guesses it right is going to win.
7.
Kidding.
I was in. I'm done.
No numbers. But
I was just thrilled that you guessed first.
So because we are on video, I think the only fair way to do this is street rules, rock, paper, scissors, best 2 out of 3. I will call the numbers. It'll be 1, 2, 3, shoot. For those of you that have been listening to this episode on iTunes, Spotify, Amazon, Google, whatever podcast platform you listen on, get your ass over to YouTube and watch these two guys duke it out for a winner of a free month of coaching, a $50 Amazon gift card, and as a self-plug, one of these awesome Gallo Fitness ice shakers in the limited edition orange color. There are only 5 of these in existence, and I own one of them. So are you guys good to go?
Here we go.
Yeah, let's go.
All right, you ready? 3, 2, 1, shoot. Ari, I can't see your hand.
Oh, sorry. Do that again. I was too low, but do it again. Do it again. No, do it again.
No.
It was rock, but it's still. Do it again. Will you put out scissor? I'll. Let's start again. I was too low, but
you got the first one.
No. Let's start again. I'll do it higher. I got it here. Let's go.
All right, ready? 3, 2, 1, shoot.
You're gonna go the same. That's fine.
All right,
same thing.
Ari, too low, by the way. 1-0. All right, you ready?
Just put it in front of your face.
Yeah, I'm just gonna. Yeah.
3, 2, 1, shoot.
Nice.
Both paper. Tie. 3, 2, 1, shoot.
All right.
Here forever. Both through rock, still tied.
I just want to say you chose it.
Yeah, right. This way, we could have gone with shortest name.
No, you said longest name.
I know. I changed it this time. Now that I know that the orange cup's in play, I mean.
All right, ready? 3, 2, 1, shoot.
1-1. All right. Good. So this last one, this is it. Yeah.
3, 2, 1, shoot. Adam wins with the paper over rock.
That was the
longest name. We would have saved ourselves a lot of time.
See, I knew it from the beginning. We could have saved ourselves 95 minutes.
Awesome, man. So Adam,
by the way,
congratulations, man.
There was no one that I'd rather lose to. This has been great, though. Thank you, both of you. This has been great.
Yeah, and I know I said it, but truly, Ari, like sharing and getting to know you better and hear your story and stuff. Like, man, I love that stuff. So, Spencer, thank you for hosting this. Thanks for giving us the opportunity to do this. And hopefully it helps somebody else out there with something, right? Or somebody at least get some entertainment out of it.
Yep, absolutely. So That said, guys, awesome. Congratulations on the win to Adam. Free month of coaching, $50 Amazon gift card, a limited edition, brand new Gallo Fitness ice shaker in the custom orange. Thank you guys both again for your time, sharing everything with us. Thank you to all the listeners and the audience for joining us on another amazing episode, or episodes at this point, of the Fit Father podcast. And if you're looking to, see how these guys are crushing their goals and get after it, and you want to start seeing those amazing results as well, feel free to shoot me a DM on Facebook or Instagram. Let's talk about how we can get you in the best shape of your life. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review this episode and all of the episodes before, so that we can get the message out to all the rest of the guys in the world. I'm Spencer Gallo of Gallo Fitness. Thank you for joining us here on the Fit Father podcast. I hope everybody has a fantastic day.